Audiobook Universal Charity by the Venerable Teacher Samael Aun Weor. Introduction. We do not aim to climb high positions, nor do we want to engage in demagogy. All we want is to serve. That's it. This book is not for scholars but for conscious charity. There are many wise people in the world, but unfortunately, in these times, charity has cooled. We want to be charitable. We want to cultivate conscious charity widely. The Gnostic Christian Universal Movement, the South American Liberating Action, and the Sivananda Arbalarta Ashrama have joined forces to initiate a new era. Amidst the august thunder of thought, millions of people from all religious schools, orders, and sects have responded to the call of the three movements. Together, we are in a position to give the world a total and definitive change. Refusing to collaborate with the Wings Triangle, Gnosis Sivananda means, in fact, isolating oneself from one's fellows and, therefore, being condemned by the great sages in the solemn verdict of public conscience. They will have no right to sit at the table of the martyrs who sacrificed themselves for the new era. It is necessary to carry out social Christ among suffering humanity. It is urgent to sacrifice oneself for humanity and promote a new order, highly scientific, philosophical, and profoundly mystical. This is the moment when we must organize the World Salvation Army. Whoever is not with us is against us. The bell of the new Aquarian era has rung, and whoever takes a step back is lost. Gnosis is wisdom, Gnosis is love, Gnosis is self-sacrifice. Whoever is incapable of sacrificing themselves for others is unworthy of living. Whoever cannot cooperate for the good of others will fall into the abyss of perdition. It is urgent to end egocentrism and cultivate Christocentrism. The hour of the social Christ has arrived. Here goes our book to the battlefield. Many will laugh at it, many will insult it, many will throw it angrily. It doesn't matter, here goes this book like a war clarion calling the brave. Gnostics forward, Gnostics to the fight for Christ and for the new era. Forward, Samael Aun Weor. Chapter 1, Universal Charity, a thorough analysis. Leads us to the conclusion that charity must be conscious. Love is law, but conscious love. The great ones of the earth constantly say, I give many alms, I am very charitable. When some powerful person spends a few pesos on a public welfare work, they proclaim it to the four winds through the press and radio, and everyone says, this is a good man. However, despite so much proclamation and propaganda, the streets of the city are full of people who lost their jobs, mothers who sacrifice themselves for a piece of bread to support their hungry children, unemployed begging or trying to work selling lotteries, newspapers, etc., to avoid dying of hunger, fathers looking for work, etc., etc. And yet, there is talk of charity. That is the sad irony of the world. Where is charity? There is a fatal tendency in the human being to always consider themselves superior to the unfortunate in life. The banker, the businessman, the elegant lady walk arrogantly down the street, and when they encounter someone from the lower class, they don't look at them, and if they do, it is to haughtily throw them a coin. These proud ones don't want to realize that the beggar, the disabled person, the unemployed, the hungry mother are not less than anyone, that they are equal to us, that they are our brothers. We are all human, blood that runs through the veins of the unfortunate runs also through the veins of the powerful. It is absurd to look down on our fellow beings, our brothers. It is illogical to consider others as strangers. No one can be a stranger in the family. The powerful help the powerful, the government helps the illustrious and abandons the unfortunate to their own fate. Current society needs to undergo a true and just social reform. That is the social Christ. We need to revive the flame of the Spirit with the force of love. We need to develop creative understanding. Chapter 2, Poor Families. We have seen unfortunate mothers surrounded by their hungry and naked children, searching the streets for dirty papers to collect and sell in certain factories for a few coins to appease hunger. No one pities them, neither the great lords nor the politicians who make so many promises to the people. We have seen mothers with malnourished children, miserable, devouring orange peels, food waste found in garbage bins. All this happens while the great ones of the earth proclaim agricultural programs, wonderful promises about capital and labor to the four winds. Politicians promise, what irony of life, they promise, until when so much injustice. Among channels of sewage, we have seen in Mexico City these poor mothers diving to retrieve the carcass of a pig, a poultry already decomposed, to appease the hunger of their family. And yet, politicians promise. For poor families, there is nothing but contempt. The great ones of the earth never remember the unfortunate, they do not exist in their minds. Some governments invent asylums for miserable families, the poor prefer to wander the streets with their misery instead of getting into this new type of jail. They are right, freedom is very beautiful, and it is preferable to die of hunger being free than to die full in a cage. The peasants' housing is for well-paid workers, houses and farms are for the bourgeoisie's employees, for those who can afford to pay well. We, the Gnostics, must fight for these unfortunate ones, open public dining rooms for these outcasts of life. We must fight before the governments of the earth so that these poor unfortunates also have their roof, humble but clean, airy, cheerful. A roof of freedom, not a pious cage with the word asylum written on its door. We, the Gnostics, must fight for these unfortunates. Living is not a crime. These poor mothers, these poor hungry, naked children also have the right to live. Chapter 3, The Law of Destiny. In the human being, there are two perfectly defined factors, personality and essence. There is also the law of destiny, karma. This great law of cause and effect controls essence but in relation to human personality. Considering things this way, it is truly difficult to predict the future for the general human populace, just as it is risky to predict the future of a crazy machine subject to the fatal law of accidents. Personality is formed at home, at school, in the environment, it is the result of education, example, habit, etc. Personality is the instrument of the ego, the essence of the soul is different, being psychic. Usually, the embryo of the soul that every human being incarnates stops in its development when the gush blesses the personality. The ego is Satan in us, a strong ego and an extremely developed personality are enough to stop the growth of essence. Essence is the embryo of the soul that every human being has incarnated. Man has not yet incarnated his soul. Blaming destiny for all human miseries is absurd. We do not deny the action of karma, but it controls essence, and relatively to personality, we could say that 50% of the bitterness of this world results from accidents. Blaming karma for everything is absurd. Misery, crime, theft are the result of our lack of charity. The unfortunate who only knew misery, who saw his mother suffer and die from hunger, has to hate society, has to declare himself its mortal enemy. We cannot blame karma for this, for destiny, we ourselves are the creators of such monsters. Raise crows, and they will take out your eyes. Some fanatics, when they see someone suffering, exclaim, karma, karma, and full of cruelty, they walk away from the unfortunate. Others say it is God's punishment, blaming misery on the great reality, ignoring that this is peace, abundance, happiness, perfection. The great reality did not create pain, misery, we are the creators. It is necessary to understand this and fight for a better world. We have to remedy this situation, this is how the embryo of the soul develops, this is how it becomes robust. Whoever sacrifices and gives their life for others is on the way to having real existence, and anyone who has real existence incarnates their soul. Chapter 4, The Rights of Man. There are rights that the state is obliged to recognize. The rights of man are very sacred. Let's study some. Heads of families. There are many heads of families who, with their income, cannot meet the needs of their home. The causes of this misfortune are often many: illiteracy, diseases, lack of technical preparation, etc. The result of this problem is hunger, the prostitution of daughters, vandalism, begging. These moral plagues are dreadful and cannot be solved with prisons. It is necessary to correct the evil at its root. Social assistance is needed for these heads of families. They also have the right to live as human beings. The state needs to improve the standard of living for these poor men. Protection of families in distress. The state must protect the families of the prosecuted, detained, exiled, or condemned. These poor families left without economic protection must be protected by the state. It must be like a mother to those who suffer. The people trust the state and must not disappoint the people. Families in distress need immediate and timely social assistance to prevent crime, otherwise, they will have to steal or prostitute themselves to survive. It is cruel from every point of view to deny them the right to social assistance. The innocent family should not have to pay the consequences of the chief's crime, which is often committed to save his wife, children, mother, or siblings. Sick people who cannot work are also human beings. They are part of the social conglomerate and have the right to live. Regardless of the cause, if they worked and fell ill, it is a duty to pay them their salary as if they were working. It would be a kind of sickness insurance. Elderly individuals should be retired by the state, not confined to asylums. No one is more or less than anyone else. The state should provide the elderly with a pension to live on and housing where they can spend their remaining years peacefully. Being elderly is not a crime. We will all reach that stage. The elderly need protection, warmth, and bread. Chapter 5: The Fallen Woman. She was a tender young woman full of charming beauty. Her only crime was loving too much, as is often the case. The lover, after satisfying his sexual desire, abandons her. The unfortunate comes to us seeking advice. She is pregnant, the lover has abandoned her, breaking promises he made. Her parents are unaware of her situation, and she can no longer hide the child in her womb. If she confesses, she will be thrown out of her home, and since she is of legal age, justice won't intervene. What does she do? She is lost, begging on the streets, seeking the brothel, the slum, vice. Fallen women abound in urban life. They can be seen in cabarets, bars, lamenting their misfortune between drinks. They can be seen on the streets, begging with their child in their arms. Society hypocritically does not forgive them for the crime of loving too much. Governments mock these cases, and society does nothing but throw them into delinquency. We ask for mercy for the fallen women, we beg the powerful of the earth for social assistance for these unfortunates, we ask for charity for these women. Chapter 6: Medical and Pharmaceutical Assistance. We have seen malnourished and sick children, destitute elderly individuals, blind unfortunates, and poor women begging for alms to buy their medicines. Some throw them a coin, others avoid the unfortunate like a bad shadow. There is no mercy for poor patients, and this happens in modern civilization. The state establishes hospitals and believes it has solved the public health problem. Poor patients cannot trust charity hospitals, they remember past suffering, their hunger, neglect, the treatment by doctors and nurses. Besides, not everyone can go to the hospital, there is almost never enough space. Additionally, a father, a family mother, prefers to beg on the streets rather than abandon their children. Who will take care of them? The state must assist the sick. Medical and pharmaceutical assistance is a state obligation to the people. Hospitals do not solve this problem. It is necessary to expand these services, composed of health clinics where free drugs are distributed, and doctors and nurses who feel human pain, even if the patient is a poor wretch. There are unusual cases. I knew a worker in Mexico City who had a work accident. While in the hospital, he was not paid his salary because, supposedly, he was not working. It is painful that a worker, because he suffered a work accident, is denied his salary. The time has come to understand that we are all human beings, not beasts, we are brothers and must help each other. We will fight for medical and pharmaceutical assistance for the people. Chapter 7: The Right to Work. When a human being reaches adulthood, they have the duty to work. Unfortunately, problems arise at this age. The young person applies for a job, and everyone laughs at them, saying to come back tomorrow or in 15 days when there is a vacancy. Time passes, and the young person becomes distressed. Perhaps their family, mother, and siblings are hungry, and their only hope is their salary. However, society rejects them, and the young person falls into the abyss of crime. To get a job, sponsorship, or influence is indispensable. Without these, there is no work for the poor. The result does not take long. That young person, full of illusions and hope for their family and society, desperate with pain, turns to crime, vice, and sin. Then society cries out, they are pursued, jailed, and even killed. Everyone is alarmed, but no one investigates the cause that led that young person to crime, as well as young people, men, and the elderly are denied the means to earn an honest living, the daily bread. We have seen humble peasants in the streets, near the large marketplaces, fleeing with the produce they brought from the field. They are not allowed to work because they do not have the money to pay for a spot in the market square. They bring corn, bananas, potatoes, etc., for the city's inhabitants to live on, but they are denied the sacred right to work. The state has the obligation to ensure this right because working is not a crime. If governments want a healthy, strong people, a rich, flourishing country, they must protect labor. Chapter 8, Housing Problem. The state must invest part of its funds in promoting the construction of affordable housing. It is fair for workers, in general, to have the joy of owning their own home. We have seen workers from all trades living in shacks made of sticks and tin, cardboard huts, filthy dens like pigs. There is no compassion for these workers. Society does not forgive them for the crime of being humble servants of it. In some city, a railway leader was imprisoned for demanding housing for his colleagues. It is painful to see complete families living in filthy rooms. In Spain, for example, they live in miserable few-meter rooms, with up to 3 families piled up like animals. In other places, so-called multifamily buildings have been invented, which, like skyscrapers, do not solve the housing problem. There, children have no space to play or soak up the sun. These buildings are nothing more than chicken coops, as if there were no land to build real houses. And the result is fatal. Diseases spread easily, and children wake up weak. The powerful individuals on earth claim that parks exist for children to play. How much time does the father have? What about the mother to go out with her children to the parks? In total, neither the child nor the elderly have the right to bask in the sun or enjoy the garden's perfume. The landlord, or the renter, is merciless and makes no excuses. Money must be prioritized above all, ready and at hand. The landlord lacks compassion and charity. If there's no money to pay the rent, everything mothers, the elderly, children, and furniture goes to the street. The landlord forgets that we are all human, that we are all brothers. The housing problem is severe, and it's time to municipalize housing. We propose 2 solutions: first, the municipalization of housing, and second, decongestion of urban life. With the first point, the exploitation of the landlord ends forever. With the second, urban life improves significantly, enhancing the economic and social situation of the people. Municipalizing housing would provide the state with monetary funds to expand the living space in urban areas. The system of the farmhouse can be constructed on the outskirts of cities, immensely benefiting society by providing daily agricultural products and domestic animals. Some governments have already initiated this system with marvelous results. The state can buy, exchange houses, provide facilities for construction through small loans. The idea is in motion, but it needs intensification so that everyone can enjoy their own home. Municipalizing housing should become law. Respecting others' property is a law, and building houses with payment facilities controlled by the municipality should be a mandatory law. No state should be indifferent to the housing problem. In an indifferent and cruel state, there is no justice. The state must be a father and mother to the people. Chapter number 9, Family, Salaries, and Housing. Those times when a woman devoted herself entirely to her divine mission of motherhood have passed. The joy of a home has been terminated by the harsh struggles of existence. Mothers have been taken out of the home and brought into offices, factories, warehouses, and even barracks. Children, who used to spend hours playing with their mothers and enjoying their tenderness, are now placed in special houses where an employee takes care of them while the mother works. These children no longer have a home, those times have passed. Misfortune has reached the doors of homes and penetrated them. Many marriages no longer want to have children, and logic is on their side. Why bring creatures into the world who won't enjoy a home, but instead, be cared for by maids and live enclosed like mice? Fathers no longer earn enough to support their families, salaries are low, and mothers have to go out to work to help their husbands. This is the misfortune of our times, and children suffer the consequences. The generation rises with complexes, saying, "My father worked, my mother couldn't raise us well because she also had to work." In this world, what matters is money, and this is the conclusion reached by the people of this generation. The rich say, "Who are you? Money speaks for you. You're worth as much as you have. If you don't have it, get it by working, and if you can't find work, always find a way." It is then that more thieves, scammers, vices, and prostitution appear. These problems have solutions without resorting to violence, coups, bloody revolutions, or dictators. We have all created these problems, and we all must solve them. It is necessary to end selfishness and the desire to rule. Let's study each problem and try to give it a fair solution. Every child born into the world costs money, and governments should protect natality. For jobs, married individuals should be preferred, and vacancies should be filled by married men. Create subsidies for each child a worker has, and if working in difficult places or hostile climates, agree on a bonus. We must understand the pain of our neighbor. We all live for each other, we all need each other, we all serve each other. The problem of any human being affects many within their radius of action, and the problem of many affects everyone. The Universal Gnostic Movement, the South American Liberating Action, and Sibananda have concluded that only through rigorous understanding is it possible to solve the problems of human life. We insist that it is cruel and ruthless not to improve the worker's salary, whose wife or partner has brought a child into the world. All this while employers shrug their shoulders, saying, "That doesn't concern me. I don't have to pay more just because you have one more child." It is an error that affects the employer in his interests because a worker with concerns and suffering cannot perform well at work, reducing his activity and, consequently, production. We commit a crime when we feel separated from our fellow human beings, we depend on them. If there are strikes in transportation, energy, the oil industry, etc., etc., we all suffer the consequences, as we have seen many times. If we want a happy home, if we want women to return to their homes as angels of happiness, if we want our children to grow up without complexes, we must intervene with the governments according to our capabilities so that the worker is better remunerated. We all must cooperate to solve this problem. Chapter number 10, Hunger in Latin America. Latin America consists of underdeveloped countries, and therefore, it needs the support of major powers. We can assert that the United States of America has monopolized the markets of Latin America, but the Colossus of the North also needs us as we need them. Latin American importers have to pay for their goods according to the dollar standard, which results in the increase of products since the currency of these countries is low compared to the dollar. The merchant cannot lose, it's his business, and who pays for the consequences of this monetary disparity? The consumer, the people. Hence, the importance of reviewing trade agreements, seeking formulas to improve the currency position of Latin American countries compared to the dollar. It is an undisputed fact that Latin American peoples feel hatred, resentment, and dissatisfaction against the United States of America. The great northern country is not interested in surrounding itself with enemies or resentful nations. It is necessary to find a solution to the problem without selfishness. We must cultivate Christocentrism, only then will we have peace, abundance, and happiness. We must abandon selfishness and carry out social Christ. Chapter number 11, High Cost of Living. In a car, we drive through the streets of the old land of the Aztecs. We find ourselves in the beautiful capital of the ancient Nahuatl. The taxi driver is an old, cheerful and talkative man. The streets of the great market of La Merced, the grocery stores, are crowded with people buying. The taxi driver comments on the high cost of living and says, "See, these stores are never empty at any time. Millions of pesos circulate through these streets daily. These places are very expensive, and therefore, merchants pass the rent on to their products, meaning the consumer." We reply, "That's right, and we must consider the hoarders. The peasant is the one who earns the least, the product passes through many hands, and when it reaches the consumer, it carries all the surcharge." The car makes its way, and the driver continues, "See, merchants have submitted a memorial to the government, requesting intervention in rental prices to sell at lower prices." "That is clear," we respond. "The municipalization of housing for all commercial premises would bring down the cost of living because the government can have warehouses for provisions to avoid hoarders. Thus, the farmer would receive a fair price for his products, and the seller would sell at prices controlled by the government. We don't need capitalism or communism to live, what is necessary is understanding." Chapter number 12, Religions. The postulate of the wise mathematician Albert Einstein, energy equals mass multiplied by the speed of light squared, put an end to atheist materialism. Mass transforms into energy, and energy transforms into mass. These wise postulates marked the end of materialism. The duality of spirit and matter is nothing but the manifestation of the same thing, which is energy. Religions have a scientific basis. Temples are true atomic energy plants. Prayers are mental formulas that allow us to generate energy, passing from one brain to another. This is how the so-called miracles occur. Anyone who laughs at religion is an enemy of atomic energy, and only the ignorant can laugh at such a truth. The forces generated by a ritual can be used in agriculture or to heal the sick from a distance. The day is not far off when these forces can be photographed and measured with precision instruments. The priests of all religions are now true magicians of nuclear energy. Death is a real subtraction of whole numbers. Once the operation is completed, only the values remain. What continues after death are the energetic values of nature. These values are reincarnated, making death a return to conception. Life and death are intimately linked because both are modifications of universal energy. The destroyers of religions are unaware of nuclear physics, and anyone who laughs at what they don't know is on the path to becoming an idiot. The persecutors of religions are poor ignorance, and anyone who criticizes the religion of others commits a crime against universal charity. Religions are precious pearls set in the golden thread of divinity. As part of the great social reform, we must respect all religions, orders, schools, and beliefs. Every human being deserves respect. Their religion is very sacred. True conscious charity is based on understanding. Anyone who fights against religious principles lacks conscious charity. Materialistic dialectics was reduced to dust with the postulates of the wise author of the theory of relativity. Scientific technique will demonstrate the existence of hyperspace, the energetic value of prayer and rituals, as well as the tremendous reality of the energetic self that continues after death. That day will come when the energetic self can be photographed by conscious charity. Religions, orders, schools must unite to work for the social and economic well-being of humanity. The fratricidal struggles of different religions are condemned to universal disapproval. The great universal charity is cosmic religiosity. End.